On September 28, 1928, Alexander Fleming returned to his St. Mary's Hospital laboratory after a holiday and noticed that one of his Staphylococcus plates had been contaminated by a mold. Around the mold was a clear zone, bacteria were dead. The mold was producing something that killed bacteria. Fleming called it penicillin. Fleming published his findings in 1929. He noted penicillin's potential and its inability to be concentrated and stored. Then, essentially, he moved on. For a decade, penicillin sat in the scientific literature unnoticed, an observation without an application. The discovery that would save hundreds of millions of lives gathered dust for 12 years. The transformation came from Howard Florey and Ernst Chain at Oxford. In 1939, they systematically reviewed promising natural antimicrobials and identified Fleming's penicillin. Working with a skilled team including Norman Heatley, they solved the extraction and purification problems Fleming could not. By 1940, they had enough penicillin to test in mice. The mouse experiment was dramatic. 8 mice were infected with a lethal dose of Streptococcus. 4 received penicillin. The next morning, the 4 treated mice were alive and well. The 4 untreated mice were dead. The result was so clear that Florey reportedly said, "It looks like a miracle." It was. The problem now was scale. The first human patient was Albert Alexander, a policeman dying of sepsis from a rose thorn scratch. Within 24 hours of penicillin, he was dramatically better. Then the supply ran out. The team recycled penicillin from his urine. But the supply could not keep pace. Alexander relapsed and died. The treatment worked. There was simply not enough of it. Britain, under bombardment in 1941, could not produce penicillin at scale. Florey and Heatley flew to the United States carrying Penicillium mold spores rubbed into the lining of their coats, in case the plane was lost. The United States, with its massive pharmaceutical industry, could produce what Oxford could not. The partnership between academic discovery and industrial production would save the war. American industrial fermentation produced penicillin at extraordinary scale. Pfizer, Merck, and Squibb converted their facilities. By 1943, enough penicillin existed for limited military use. By June 1944, D-Day, there was enough for all Allied wounded. The infection rates among Allied soldiers in Normandy were a fraction of those in the First World War. Penicillin made the difference. In the First World War, more soldiers died of infection than of wounds. In the Second World War, the equation reversed. Penicillin treated wound infections, gas gangrene, pneumonia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. Soldiers who would have died of sepsis recovered in days. The war produced the infrastructure for the antibiotic age, and proved its value beyond all doubt. The post-war era was a golden age of antibiotic discovery. Streptomycin in 1943, chloramphenicol in 1947, tetracycline in 1948, erythromycin in 1952. Each new class attacked different bacteria. Tuberculosis, syphilis, typhoid, scarlet fever, diseases that had killed for millennia became routinely treatable. The optimism was justified. Infectious disease seemed to be on the retreat. Selman Waxman at Rutgers University systematically searched soil bacteria for antimicrobial compounds. His team isolated streptomycin in 1943, the first effective treatment for tuberculosis. Waxman coined the word antibiotic. He won the Nobel Prize in 1952. His systematic approach, search nature for molecules that kill bacteria, defined antibiotic discovery for the next 40 years. Alexander Fleming, in his 1945 Nobel Prize lecture, delivered a warning that was ignored for decades. If antibiotics were used carelessly, in subtherapeutic doses, for inappropriate conditions, in agriculture, bacteria would develop resistance. He was right. Every mechanism of resistance he predicted has been observed. The antibiotic era contained the seeds of its own limitation from its first announcement. Today, antimicrobial resistance kills over 1 million people per year. MSA, NDM-producing Klebsiella, pan-resistant Acinetobacter, bacteria resistant to all known antibiotics exist in hospitals worldwide. The antibiotic pipeline has largely dried up. Developing new antibiotics is expensive and insufficiently profitable. Fleming's 1945 warning is the most important unheeded lesson in the history of medicine. From Fleming's contaminated plate in 1928, to Florey and Chain's Oxford extraction, to mold spores in coat linings to America, to industrial-scale fermentation, to D-Day injections, to Fleming's warning about resistance. Penicillin was medicine's greatest gift of the 20th century. Resistance is the debt that gift is now calling in. I am Takku. Fleming found penicillin by accident, and it became the greatest medicine in history. Subscribe to Wisdom of Takku, because curiosity and chance together have always changed the world.